G'day, just letting you know I'm currently watching Sky Racing on the Sportsbet app live from this hairdresser. You beauty!
Thanks, babe.
Watch Aussie racing anywhere with Sportsbet. Conditions apply and gamble responsibly. 1-800-858-858.
Continental Tires, AFL Trade Radio. A trade news update for the Beaumont Tiles Trade Club.
This is a trade news update for the Beaumont Tiles Trade Club. Visit iCanWin.com.au. And if you've missed the first 15 minutes of AFL Trade Exchange, our man Cal Toomey reporting exclusively on AFL.com.au and Trade Radio that Jeremy Finlayson is bound for Port Adelaide. A deal will go through today. That's Wednesday for a future third-round pick that'll get moved to the Giants for Jeremy Finlayson. That's a trade news update for Beaumont Tiles Trade Club. Visit iCanWin.com.au. Cal, Port Adelaide's in an interesting position now. They get Finlayson through the door. They've still got a deal for Laddams to work out. I found it interesting last night that their footy boss Chris Davies said on 5AA that he thought a deal was less likely than more likely. We reported on AFL.com.au last night that Hawthorn and Sydney have both officially met with Pete Laddams. They met over Zoom last week to formalise their interest in the ruckman. Do you think Port Adelaide's asking price might turn a few clubs off, though? They are asking for a first-round pick either this year or next year.
It could, but you have to pay to get your guy, don't you? And if you want a ruckman, then you have to pay to grab him. And he's at the age now where he probably is ready to take the mantle as someone who's more experienced and that more senior position within a midfield, isn't he? So he's been the understudy to Scott Lysette for a number of years now, been in that middle ground of, your second choice, your second in, you can play bit part forward, bit part ruck. And I think that's part of his appeal as well, that he will be a good partner for someone.
Yeah.
If you're Sydney, I think you look at him a year on from when they showed real interest in him and were really interested in him last year, that interest should not have subsided that much because Tom Hickey's been fantastic, but he's in his 30s in his fourth club.
Yeah.
And Cal Sinclair's just re-signed for an extra year. He's 32. So that means that you need to be preparing for that next guy to come in. And if it's not this year, then they'll be trying to find someone next year. So do you just bite the bullet a little bit and do that? Maybe it will depend a little bit on what they end up achieving out of the Jordan Dawson deal.
Yes.
And if they feel like they've got a first-round pick for this year sewn up somehow, some way, through the Crows transaction, then that might give them the ability then to make a move a little bit harder and more forcefully on Laddams, knowing that as well there's first round picks and there's first round picks. You can sometimes slide picks around as well, so that the net result is you get a first round pick, but you also move around some things so that you can move up the order at different spots. So
like the Jack Higgins deal last year, for example.
Correct. So there is some manoeuvring that can happen with these type of things. And although we look at straight swaps of picks and players, clubs are very, very rarely looking at straight swaps for player by player. We know that. Speaking of Cal Sinclair, is one of the most recent ones and last ones with Lewis Jetta.
Of course.
But beyond that, they're also looking at pick swaps down the track because everyone's got different priorities and different views on where they might be in a year and what things might look like in 12 months' time. So some clubs think that they're in a period where, okay, we target the 2022 pool, so future picks mean more to us. Other clubs are in a different position in their list and premiership build, and they say, well, we're in for the now. And Port Adelaide are in this good position where they've built so strongly and drafted so strongly that they can afford to make some moves, and they've got the youth coming through and star youth too. So you can have some real confidence that you build around Rosie, you build around Dursby, you build around my man Zach Butters, all of them really, those three. You've seen what Miles Bergman can do. Yes. I'm still a believer in Todd Marshall's ability, and I think that there's so much untapped there to work with. So Mitch Georgiades, of
Lockie
course.
Jones,
Lockie Jones, who we haven't seen too much of yet, who looks like he's 28, but it's 19. So the Port Adelaide build is a little bit more straightforward in some ways because you know what you're going to have in 5-6 years' time, and there's some guys there to really build around, and not every club has that luxury to do that.
All right, we'll get to some calls on the Kogan Mobile open line, 1300 23 55 48. Kogan Mobile, just $4.90 for 30 days. We'll head out to McKinnon where Jared joins us. He wants to talk about what St Kilda might be doing with their draft capital. G'day, Jared.
Hey guys, I was just wondering, so Hawthorn have might be able to trade Tom Mitchell or O'Meara for a top 10 pick. I was wondering if Saints would be able to trade their pick number 9 for either one of those to upgrade the midfield, and then they would still have enough draft capital to draft Owens and Windhager as next-gen players with bidding.
Yeah, not sure about that because the Saints are very keen on going to the draft this year. They haven't, obviously they had a first-round pick last year, but it wasn't until the mid-20s when they brought in Matt Allison, even though it counted as a first-round pick still because of the bids on academy and father-son players. So they're keen to go to a draft. I can't see them trading pick 9. As for their 2 NGA players coming through, it's been put to me by a couple of clubs, Cal, you probably know more about this, that Mitch Owens in particular is getting interest potentially even in the first round, that 15 to 20 range. Is that how you see it with him and Marcus Windhager?
To a degree. I mean, I think there's some interest in him, definitely, and both of them. I still feel like the odds are far bigger in favour that he gets, and both of them get outside the 20.
Yeah.
I think there's clubs who do like them within that range and are talking about them, but when I do the board, I can find 15 names really quickly to get into the teens, and at that point, the last 5 can be a mix and a jumble of guys. But if I was backing in odds, it would be the odds of them getting outside the 20. And to be honest, they haven't played for a while. So if they had have played for the rest of the season and continued at the rate of which they were developing, we've done a video on them on afl.com.au. So if you're a Saints fan and want to check out how they play and what they do really well, go on the website at the moment or the AFL Live app and have a watch. But I do feel like the likelihood is they are available beyond the 20. At that point, the Saints will be able to match a bid for them wherever it comes under the new NGA rules. Just the irony, you were talking yesterday about sort of neat circles on trades and things. The irony of St Kilda giving up a first-round pick or a top 10 pick for Jager O'Meara when it was the Hawks who gave their future first pick to the Saints to land the key piece of that deal to get Jager O'Meara across the board. That pick ended up being Hunter Clark. So it's just funny how different suggestions can work in rhythms in the past.
Ali in the Gold Coast wants to talk about Carlton. G'day, mate.
G'day, champ. How are we, guys?
Not bad, thank you.
That's the way, champ. Now, my question is, alrighty, I know SPS wants to go to West Coast, and Carlton got a compensation pick 52. Is that right, Riley? For SPS, if he does go to West Coast, is that right?
They haven't got that yet, but it's one of the numerous factors that's been worked through at the moment.
Okay. All right. My question is, Riley, fair enough, he hasn't been that superstar, but I always rated Cowboy. I always did. He played 94 games. He's still a young fella. How many games did Moba Chol play for Richmond?
30-odd, I think.
Okay, all right. And he got a trade to the Gold Coast Suns. Now, honestly, I would put them both in the same category. Why does Carlton get if SPS does go to West Coast, why was there compensation pick in the 50s, whereas Mobichal got one at 28?
Well, it works out differently. So Gold Coast didn't have to give up pick 28. That's a free agency compensation based on the contract that the Suns gave him, whereas Sam Petrevsky-Seton isn't a free agent. He just moved to West Coast as a trade, so the two clubs would need to negotiate that. There was never any negotiation on the value of Mabior Chol between Gold Coast and Richmond.
You're all over that, champ.
Champ twice.
Yeah, champ twice. You got Riley twice though as well. It's a complicated system to work out.
Yeah,
it really is. But the difference there clearly is that Mabior Chol moved as a free agent, and the youngest free agent in history because he was delisted last year and or previously a delisted player, and that means that they qualified as free agents under the new rules, and that's meant for at the start of this year the biggest and strongest and longest list of free agents ever because of all those moves last year that saw players be delisted. And the clubs actually at the time, I remember speaking to a few clubs at the time saying we have to be really careful on who we delist here. So even though it's just one of these transactions where you're just moving down for basically administrative purposes, you need to be careful because it does open up the opportunity down the track for them to become a free agent. And play like James Jordan was
Jordan,
one.
yeah,
He's become
perfect example.
a premiership player a year after being delisted and a free agent and a rising star. So interesting mix.
Plenty more to get to on AFL Trade Exchange for Ream. Ask your plumber to install a Ream steady, hot and strong. And for Repco, authorised service for expert car service. Book online at repcoservice.com.